Okay, so get this. The LA fires have been everywhere, right? And you guys have said there's a ton of articles about it.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense stuff. Thousands of acres burned these crazy Santa Ana winds.
Hmm.
And we even saw celebrities having to evacuate their homes.
Right.
So much to unpack here.
It is.
We're going to be diving into all the details today to help us make sense of it all we've got with us today.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome. So let's jump right in. We can't ignore the celebrity angle. It's been all over the headlines.
Yeah.
John Goodman, Paris Hilton,
Yeah.
Eugene Levy, Billy Crystal. So many big names affected by these fires.
What I find really interesting is how social media is playing a role in all of this.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like Carrie Ellis, he was actually filming his evacuation driving through the smoke.
Wow.
It's like we're getting these real-time, firsthand accounts
Totally.
of these disasters.
I saw Paris Hilton's Instagram post about her Malibu home.
Oh, yeah.
She was heartbroken watching it burn on live TV.
It's a good reminder that these
Yeah.
events can touch anyone. Yeah,
Doesn't matter how famous or wealthy you are.
exactly. And while those stories are definitely attention-grabbing, it's important to remember that they represent just a small fraction of the almost 180,000 people who have been displaced by these fires.
It's a massive event.
It is. So let's talk numbers. How widespread were these fires?
Well, the scale is pretty staggering.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking over 12,000 acres burned across multiple fires, including the Eaton and Hearst fires.
Wow.
And these weren't isolated incidents. They were fueled by a combination of factors.
Right. The articles mention these Santa Ana winds
Yeah.
were a major factor. What makes them so different from regular wind?
Well, Santa Ana winds are unique to this region. They originate in the Great Basin east of California and then rush down towards the coast.
Okay.
And as they descend, they become hot and dry, creating these extremely dangerous fire conditions.
So that's not just the wind itself, it's also that they're so dry.
Yeah. They suck the moisture right out of the vegetation.
Wow. So it's like they're turning the landscape into a tinderbox? Exactly.
And with the drought conditions California has been experiencing,
Right.
it's no wonder these fires spread so quickly.
Yeah, it's a combination of the long-term drought stressing the vegetation and then these intense dry winds that can drive a fire
Right.
across huge distances in a very short amount of time.
It all sounds very intense. But what actually sparked these fires? Was it lightning strikes, arson, or something else?
Well, while the official investigations are still ongoing, it's unlikely that lightning was the culprit. You know, with those Santa Ana winds whipping through the area, it created conditions where even a small spark could ignite a major fire.
So something as simple as a carelessly discarded cigarette.
Exactly.
Or sparks from machinery.
That's right. Under these conditions, a tiny ember can quickly become a raging inferno.
So it could be human carelessness,
Potentially.
magnified by these extreme weather conditions.
That's a crucial point. While natural factors definitely play a role, human actions, whether intentional or accidental, are often the trigger for these large-scale fires. And as we build more homes in fire-prone areas, the potential for human-sparked fires only increases.
It's kind of scary to think about, how just a small spark can lead to so much destruction.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears for a second and talk about the people actually fighting these fires, the firefighters.
Right.
I mean, it must be so challenging to try and contain a fire with those crazy Santa Ana winds going on.
It's incredibly demanding work, both physically and mentally.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're working tirelessly in this extreme heat, dangerous conditions, facing a really formidable opponent.
The articles I read mentioned that those strong winds actually make it harder to use those traditional firefighting methods.
Right.
So how do they adapt to those challenges?
It takes a combination of ground and air resources, and they have to be constantly adjusting to the situation, which is always changing. On the ground, they focus on protecting structures, creating containment lines, and then using things like hand tools and bulldozers to clear vegetation and create those fire breaks.
I was reading about them using controlled burns.
Yeah.
It seems kind of counterintuitive, like fighting fire with fire.
Right.
Can you explain that a little?
Yeah, it might sound strange, but it's a proven method, actually. It's been used for centuries.
Oh.
Basically, firefighters intentionally set small controlled fires ahead of the main fire to reduce the amount of fuel available.
So it's like starving the wildfire.
Exactly, slowing its progress and giving firefighters a chance to get ahead of it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about air resources?
Yeah.
What role do they play in fighting these huge fires?
Air support is really crucial, especially in these large-scale fires. Helicopters and planes can drop water and fire retardant on the flames,
Right.
which helps to slow the spread and protect structures.
Yeah, you always see those dramatic images of the helicopters hovering over the fires, releasing those huge amounts of water.
It's pretty impressive.
It is.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing there are limitations to using aircraft in those kinds of conditions.
Oh, for sure. Strong winds can make it really dangerous for aircraft to operate. And, the availability of resources is always a factor, too, especially when there are multiple fires burning at the same time.
So it's this constant balancing act.
Yeah.
Prioritizing resources and making the most of what they have.
Exactly.
So it sounds like fighting these fires is like this constant game of strategy, adapting to these ever-changing conditions.
For sure.
But beyond just putting out the flames, what about preventing these fires in the first place?
That's a key point.
Yeah.
Prevention is absolutely essential when it comes to wildfires, and it requires a multi-pronged approach.
Okay, so what kind of approaches are we talking about? What can be done to actually reduce the risk of these devastating fires?
Well, one important aspect is vegetation management.
Okay.
Clearing brush and creating what's called defensible space around homes and communities. This helps to reduce the fuel load and slow the spread of the fires. It's like creating a buffer zone.
So it's not just about what firefighters do during a fire,
Right.
but what communities do before a fire even starts.
Exactly. Taking proactive steps to reduce risk.
Mm-hmm.
And this includes being really mindful of fire safety practices, especially during those dry, windy conditions.
Right.
Avoiding activities that could spark a fire.
Like using machinery that creates sparks or burning debris.
Yeah, all of that is crucial.
It sounds like education and awareness play a big role here.
Definitely. People need to understand the risks associated with their actions, even those seemingly small ones.
Right.
Something as simple as a car exhaust on dry grass
Yeah.
can ignite a fire under the right conditions.
So it's not just about putting out your campfire, being careful with fireworks.
It's everything.
But also understanding how everyday activities can contribute to the risk.
Yeah. Creating this culture of fire safety.
So it's about individual responsibility, but also community action. What can communities actually do to promote that kind of fire-safe culture?
Well, community involvement is huge here.
Yeah.
Neighborhood groups, homeowners associations, local governments, they can all work together to promote fire safety and implement preventative measures. Imagine a community where everyone understands their role in preventing fires and takes action to minimize those risks.
It's a shared responsibility then.
Exactly.
It's not just about the firefighters putting out the fires, but about communities working together to prevent them.
Yeah, and by taking that proactive approach, we can reduce the risk of these fires and protect our communities, creating a more resilient future.
Okay, so we've talked about the firefighters, the importance of community involvement, and those preventative measures.
Right.
But what about the long-term implications of these fires? I'm curious about the environmental consequences, especially with a rainy season coming up.
That's a really important question, and we'll dive into that environmental impact right after this short break.
All right, so we're back and ready to dig into those environmental consequences.
Okay.
Especially those concerns about mudslides and erosion you mentioned before the break.
Yeah, that's a crucial thing to think about. The environmental impacts of these fires are pretty big, and they last a long time, too.
Right.
Way beyond just the damage from the flames themselves.
When I was looking through all the articles, those images of the smoke-filled skies were really something else.
Yeah.
It was so dense over LA, it practically blocked out the sun.
Yeah, the impact on air quality is a big concern, and it's immediate, too. Wildfire smoke has all these harmful pollutants that can travel for miles.
Right, so it's not just affecting those close to the fires.
No, it can affect communities far downwind.
Wow.
It's a serious health hazard, particularly for anyone with respiratory conditions.
And it's not just a short-term issue either, right?
Nope, definitely not. There are long-term environmental consequences to consider as well.
Like what?
Well, these fires release a ton of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, and that contributes to climate change, which then makes these fires more likely.
So it's a vicious cycle.
It really is.
Yeah.
The fires make climate change worse, and then climate change leads to more fires.
It's a scary thought.
Yeah.
And what about the impact on the land itself?
Yeah, those scorched landscapes you see in the aftermath, that's a major disruption to the whole ecosystem. Habitats for wildlife are destroyed, and it can take years, even decades, for those areas to fully recover.
One article I was reading mentioned the risk of landslides and erosion, especially with the rainy season coming up.
Yeah.
How does that tie in with the fires?
Well, When fire sweeps through an area, it burns away all the vegetation that helps to hold the soil in place.
Okay.
So without those roots and that ground cover, the soil is much more vulnerable to erosion.
Mm-hmm.
And when heavy rains come, that can lead to mudslides, debris flows,
Oh, wow.
and damage to waterways.
So it's like this domino effect with these potentially really long-lasting consequences.
Yeah.
Not just for the environment, but for the communities that rely on those natural resources.
Exactly. It paints a pretty stark picture.
It does. But I'm hoping there's some good news somewhere in all of this.
Well, there is some hope. Amidst all of the devastation, these fires actually provide a unique opportunity for scientists.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to study how resilient ecosystems can be.
Okay.
By observing how those plant and animal communities respond to these disturbances, we can learn how to help them recover.
So there's a learning element here.
Yeah.
A chance to gain some insights
Right.
that could help us better manage and prevent these wildfires in the future.
Exactly. And there's actually growing momentum behind proactive forest management.
What's that?
Well, it uses techniques like controlled burns and thinning to reduce those fuel loads
Okay.
and make those landscapes more resilient to fire.
So it's about working with fire, not just against it.
Exactly.
Seems like there's a lot we can do,
There is.
both to prevent these fires
Yeah.
and lessen their environmental impact.
Yeah,
But it's going to take a real shift in our thinking, right?
definitely.
Yeah.
We need to stop just reacting to fires and start embracing a more proactive, holistic approach to fire management. It's a conversation that needs to involve everyone.
Yeah.
Policymakers, scientists, land managers, communities. We need to work together to find solutions.
Well, this deep dive has definitely been eye-opening. We've explored the human impact, those incredible firefighters, the importance of community involvement, and then all those long-term environmental consequences. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah,
But it's also empowering to know that we can actually do something,
it is.
that we can take action and make a difference.
I agree. It's a good reminder that we're all connected to the environment
Yeah.
and our actions have consequences.
For sure.
But it's also a call to action, an invitation to become more informed, more engaged, and more proactive in protecting our communities and the natural world.
Well said. And that wraps up our deep dive into the LA fires. We hope this conversation has given you some valuable insights. Yeah. And inspired you to learn more about this really important issue.
Absolutely.
Remember, knowledge is power. And by staying informed and engaged, we can all contribute to a more sustainable and resilient future.
Stay curious, everyone, and thanks for listening.